Never liked him. It makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
Like you said, I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
So as a conservative who thinks that Trump does not have the answers and isn't qualified to be president, what are you going to do this election, if you don't mind saying?
My current plan is to vote either third party, or as I joke to my wife, I might write in my dog, because that's about as good as it seems. But, you know, I think there's a chance, if I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, that I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. Ultimately, I think I'll probably vote third party. I might vote for this new guy who I really like, Evan McMullin, who I actually met the other day. But I think that I'm going to vote for. I'm going to vote third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place.
Donald Trump's new running mate. I will vote for my dog over him. I will vote for a guy I just met, Evan McMullin, or Hillary Clinton, or some other third-party entity I can't even name. I will not vote for him because he is noxious and he is leading us in this country to a very dark place. He calls him a total fraud. In addition to that clip you saw there of him on MSNBC on Hardball with Chris Matthews, saying that he believed a woman when she testified in the E. Jean Carroll case that she was sexually assaulted by Trump. He believed her, not Trump. He also liked a tweet around the same time saying that Trump had committed serial sexual assault. Another one just calling Trump a monster. He has called Trump a moral disaster. He's called him cultural heroin. He has called him reprehensible. He has also called him, quote, an idiot. JD Vance is a very good writer. He wrote in a very good New York Times op-ed that, quote, Trump is unfit for our nation's highest office. He wrote to one former roommate about Trump, quote, I go back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical a-hole like Nixon or that he's America's Hitler. How's that for discouraging? End quote.
Of Congress, who was a Republican, came out immediately and blamed the incident on DEI and said that the fact that there were women and Black people in the Secret Service is the reason this happened. That is a member of Congress who went out on the TV and said to the world that DEI was the cause of an assassination attempt. This is where the Republican Party is. So it's ironic that they were able to recruit this young woman who, you know, and she's a racially ambiguous. I don't want to say she's Black because she has said she's not. So I don't want to say this Black woman, this woman who is of whatever race that she has claimed. She said she's not Black. But they've brought somebody whose whole career is based in Black culture. She used to be on a show on BET. That's the reason most people know who she is. She dated one of the most prominent African-American rappers in the business in the history of hip hop. So her whole culture came from Black culture, even though she says she's not a Black person herself. And the fact that she is now the person they're using to try to recruit young people of color and to say that this is the person who is the endorser of Donald Trump, who you should trust, when she won't even claim the culture that brought her to the table. I'm dubious that this will work. I don't know anyone who takes their political cues from Amber Rose, but just in case you do, you might want to duplicate doing your own research because she might not have done it thoroughly.
Well, leave it to Joy Ann Reid. Joy is always on point. Listen, Amber Rose has been for, as they say, been for the streets for a long time. Anyway, welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. And yeah, there's so much going on in the news. We're going to have a conversation this morning, though, about sickle cell. That's coming up at about the top of the hour. So stay tuned. Like everything else, it disproportionately affects African Americans. And we need to be educated. We definitely need to be educated. Well, so much going on. President Biden announced a major new action to lower housing costs by limiting rent increases and building more homes. He calls on corporate landlords to cap rent increases at 5% and takes action to make more public land available for housing. He has taken action that makes rent, he says, more affordable for millions of Americans. He's calling on Congress also to pass legislation giving corporate landlords a choice to either cap rent increases on existing units at 5% or risk losing current valuable federal tax breaks. He wants to repurpose public land sustainability to enable as many as 15,000 additional affordable housing units to be built in places like Nevada, Virginia, and New York, and other places. He called on Congress to make the so-called American dream a reality for more families by passing the Biden-Harris housing plan, which would build 2 million homes and provide $10,000 in mortgage relief to unlock home ownership for millions of Americans. Already more units are under construction than at any time in more than 50 years, and the rate of new housing starts is up to 17% compared to the last administration. They're saying that they're using all available tools to lower housing costs, including limiting rent increases on rentals built with federal tax credits, supporting local communities that are building more homes, standing up to price fixing by corporate landlords, setting high rents for tens of millions of apartments, and cutting energy costs by making housing more efficient and climate resilient. We know that the Republicans have blocked efforts to lower rent. And we also know, folks, these plans that were announced on a call last night with the Biden administration and embargoed until this morning. This is why I'm free to talk about it. They are going to go away under a second Trump administration, and it would be outlawed under Project 2025. The Biden administration also announced this morning that they are awarding $325 million in Choice Neighborhoods implementation grants, funding 7 communities to build more homes and revitalize neighborhoods that have been left behind. And we know there's many of those type of neighborhoods. And so this $325 million should really, really help. They mentioned places like Arizona, Louisiana, Maine, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Virginia, et cetera, et cetera. And again, Project 2025 will make this, it will outlaw this. And that is a fact. Also this morning, people naively assumed that Trump would be held accountable by our justice system. Many of us have always had very little faith that would happen. He has the Supreme Court in his pocket. In fact, I don't know who saw I believe it was the Newsweek cover with the Supreme Court justices, and in the middle, in a Supreme Court justice row, was none other than the twice impeached, 34 times convicted felon, former President Donald Trump. So, with that being said, MAGA judge herself and future Supreme Court justice under a Trump administration, Eileen Cannon, has dismissed the documents case against Donald Trump. No surprise there. No surprise there at all. Why would there be? Why would we be surprised? Why would we be surprised? She has never tried to hide. And I guess in that sense, you could say good for her that she's never tried to hide that she is full on Trump, full on MAGA. And it leads some to believe that the special counsel, Merrick Garland as well, the AG, and others are a bit more nefarious creatures than what you may have believed. And that's certainly my opinion, that everybody's playing a role in this. Everybody's playing a role in this because I've said it many times. You guys have heard me many times say that months and months and months and months ago, he could have just just put this case aside. In other words, drop it without prejudice, meaning he could go back to it and go to Washington in front of Judge Chuckin, a more righteous judge, and prosecute the man for his actions on January 6th. And so she played him and played him and played him, ran the clock out. And now what's going to happen here? They're going to appeal. They'll win the appeal. And then she'll have them send it to the Supreme Court, to the Trump Supreme Court. This case is over. It's done. It's finished. It's never happened. And that is regardless of whether he gets in office or not. What she has effectively done is played special counsel Jack Smith like a fiddle. She played him. He got played. But the question is, because he's got to be smarter than allowing this bimbo to play him. He must have been in cahoots. And then Uncle Clarence made that comment. It's not a ruling. And this is what she went on. She went on that he does not have the authority to be special counsel. And Uncle Clarence had made that same comment. He said, I wonder if he has the authority to be special counsel, because special counsel should have to be approved by the House and Senate, which is not true. But that's what she based it on. She based it on Uncle Clarence saying, I wonder. And she said, he doesn't have the authority. She does not have the authority to say he doesn't have the authority. How about that? Cash me outside. It's like, come on, give me a break. To just be so, these folks are, they truly are. I heard Newt Gingrich, of all people, talk about God and Trump is like they basically admitting now that they are worshiping Trump. And that, Power 96 is asking if the documents were stolen from DC, why wasn't this case tried in DC? It's a good question. It's a good question. Because you're right when you think about it, because you hear of extradition all the time, and he could have been extradited back to D.C. But that's a great point. Simple but great point. Like Trump, JD Vance supports a nationwide. See, folks, if you didn't know, now you know. I mean, this pick, which is not a surprise, this vice presidential pick, which is not a surprise. It's extremely dangerous. This is an extremely dangerous man. I remember people used to say, well, Mike Pence is probably worse than Trump, which turned out to be not so true, because if he was as bad as Trump, because he would not have certified that election. JD Vance has said he would not have. And he wouldn't. But like Trump, JD Vance supports a nationwide ban on abortion, and he criticizes exceptions for rape and incest. Like Donald Trump, JD Vance supports an abortion ban nationwide and imposes exceptions for rape and incest survivors. He says two wrongs don't make it right. He calls those circumstances inconvenient. He thinks women should stay in violent marriages. These are the things that he has said, not somebody's reported that he said. These are things he said. He said on television. He said in front of people and at rallies, et cetera, et cetera. He supports gutting Social Security. He supports abolishing Obamacare, which, again, we talked about yesterday, includes protections for 30 million people with pre-existing conditions. He calls Social Security and Medicare the biggest roadblocks to any kind of real fiscal sanity. He denies the results of the 2020 election. He makes excuses for political violence. Uh, he's repeatedly attempted to whitewash the political violence that occurred on January 6th. He has a reputation as one of the more or the most far-right extremists in Washington. He endorsed a January 6th rally member for Congress and called Marjorie Taylor Greene, who traffics in anti-Semitism and division and hatred and racism, a friend of his. This, folks, we talk about Project 2025 is what you should be concerned about. This guy is Project 2025 personified. It's the bottom line. Power 96 is down in Atlanta. It's SWAC Football Media Day. All right. He's eating too much ham or something down there. He says the ham slices are too thick. But this is the deal. This is the deal. So again, I let it be known, our responsibility is simply to properly educate everyone on what they will not get directly from, most of the time anyway, mainstream media, and let you know what is really happening. And this is happening. This is happening. The heck with Amber Rose. Who cares about Amber Rose? This is irrelevant as can be. Even that other chick that she was hanging out with for a time there with those Kardashians. What's her name? See, it's a conspiracy. They're trying to come for me. Power 96, they're trying to come for me. They're trying to come for me. But nonetheless, this is what we get. Yeah, Michelle says, Amber Rose, please sit down. Have a seat. Nobody wants to see you. Nobody wants to see those. It's so funny because I'm sure when she walked out there yesterday in Milwaukee, and you sort of looks on those folks' face like, Amber, who? Who is she? Is she another one of them guys that the former president had to pay off? Were there allegations we missed? Give me a break. Outspoken and fiery New York rep Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, has sharply criticized fellow Democrats who are wavering in their support for President Biden's reelection campaign. Regarded as a forceful advocate within her party, the 34-year-old Congresswoman condemned an unnamed colleague who expressed concerns about Biden's ability to secure victory in November. In a direct challenge, Ocasio-Cortez stated, if you are... So before I tell you the quote, what happened was this so-called senior member claimed that told reporters that Trump has the election in the bag. And so she went nuclear. She says, if you are a senior Democrat that feels this way, you should absolutely retire and make space for true leadership that refuses to resign themselves to fascism. I mean, what are we really doing here? What are we doing here is what she's saying. It's this shooting constantly themselves, not in the foot, but in the head. Recently, AOC said if we can expand on healthcare, if we can make sure that people's rents and mortgages are affordable, if we can actually provide and chart out a future that is more leaning into the needs of working people, then I think we can chart a path to win. And look at the announcement today. Apparently, the White House was listening. The campaign, at least, was listening. Because look at the announcement just this morning. $325 million Biden is pouring into housing and homes and new homes for the underprivileged or the underserved, the disenfranchised. Now, turning quickly to Project 2025, we said we're going to be bringing you things. On page 61 of the 922-page document, it says attorneys in the Office of White House Counsel must therefore work collaboratively within the White House and the Department of Justice, relying on each other as a team to ensure that proper legal guidance is delivered to the president. Did you catch that part? Proper legal guidance. They complain. They complain that Biden, which he did not, weaponized the Justice Department. Trump actually weaponized the Justice Department, but they complain that he's weaponizing the Justice Department. But at the same time, now they're saying in Project 2025, we want the Justice Department to be advising the White House and and we want them to work collaboratively. You can't have it both ways. They mentioned that the department's political leadership can restore the department's focus on its two core functions, protecting public safety and defending the rule of law. Then on page 590 of that racist document, it says promptly and properly eliminating lawless policies. This is really important, folks. This is really important. They want to promptly and properly eliminate what they call lawless policies, investigations, January 6th, of course, Trump's trials, of course. And here's the thing that every single African American, I don't care who you are, if you are Black, this should alarm you to no end. This part right here. Eliminating all consent decrees. eliminating all consent decrees. Consent decrees. If you don't know what that means. So every time we have a George Floyd case, we got so many, right? Every time we have an Eric Garner case, every time we have a Louisiana where there's corruption in police departments, the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, which Project 2025 seeks to eliminate as well, the Civil Rights Department gives that department, whatever police department, an opportunity to clean up this act. And if they don't clean up the act, then they take over and put in what they call a consent decree, in which they oversee the police department in that particular jurisdiction, weed out all of the bad, or at least attempt to weed out the bad, and they oversee it sometimes for as long as 10, maybe 15 years. And in those cases of consent decrees, you find that there are almost no racial violence, because those officers are now know that they're now out of the jurisdiction of their sergeant, their lieutenant, their own captain, their own chief. They're under the jurisdiction of somebody like Christian Clark, who is not going to play at the Department of Justice. And so they're on their best behavior for those 10, 15 years, which gives Black folks in particular a little breathing room that they're not going to get just arbitrarily shot down by the police. So Project 2025 says, we're going to eliminate that. Shoot them down like the animals we believe they are. There's no such thing as an innocent Black man or Black woman or Hispanic male or Hispanic female, or there's no such thing as an innocent member of the LGBTQ community. We're just going to assassinate them. Sounds familiar? Sounds familiar? Folks don't want to use, they got on Biden for previously stating that Trump has placed a target on himself. This is long before the assassination. And obviously what Biden was talking about in the whole context there was as far as being a threat to democracy. And Mr. Holt decided to grill him on that in the interview yesterday, which was ridiculous. Because again, let's not pretend that you didn't know what the man meant. Trying to make more out of it, trying to get a gotcha moment in the interview. Everybody is down with this craziness. Got utmost respect for Lester Holt. But come on, give me a break. Give me a break. And then you see the Negro. You know, yesterday he was kind of defining the word nigger. And we saw one of them at the Republican convention yesterday, gets up there smiling like buckwheat, talking about if you don't vote for Trump, you ain't Black. And then they pan the audience and all these white folks there smiling. It's like, give me a break. Give me a break. What are y'all doing? Everybody's lost their ever loving minds. They've lost their minds. They have lost their minds. So Project 2025 it also mentions in that same section, they called this menace of anti-white racism. So they want to abolish affirmative action policies, which they have, which is, we keep saying to you that Project 2025 is not the future. It started. It's called for the next Republican administration to use the DOJ's Civil Rights Division to prosecute all state and local governments, institutions of higher education, corporations, and other private employees with affirmative action or DEI policies. So they're going to prosecute those who even talk about DE&I. So just again, just so you'll know what's going on here. And just to put a bow on this, Melissa Murray, who's a law professor at New York University, told reporters that Project 2025 is probably the most effective social engineering experience in dealing with the pernicious legacy of slavery. What kind of nonsense is that? No, I'm sorry. I said it wrong. Affirmative action, she said. Um, Without affirmative action, and Project 2025 has dismantled it. So that's what we're talking about. And folks got to take it serious. You got to think about this stuff. Think about this stuff. Now, turning our attention to sickle cell disease, it affects more than 90% of Black or African Americans in the United States who have the condition, with an estimated 1 in every 365 Black or African American babies born with sickle cell. Sickle cell is a chronic condition that affects red blood cells, causing them to die early and get stuck in small blood vessels, which can lead to pain, infection, stroke, and other serious problems. Symptoms could include changes in skin color, darkened or increased urination, changes in appetite or activity level, excessive fussiness, or relentless unexplained pain, fever, swelling, especially in the hands, feet, or ankles. Well, the Sickle Cell Consortium is having a conference beginning on July 17th, tomorrow, in Atlanta, which is the first city to have a sickle cell sanctuary or hospital for sickle cell patients. Here to discuss it, Sickle Cell Consortium founder, Dr. Lakiea Bailey. Welcome to Let It Be Known, the 11th Annual Warriors Convention, and also the Director of Operations on the site as well. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, it's good to see these ladies with the sun shining bright in your faces. So, listen, we know sickle cell affects a lot of people, but we also know, like so many other things, Black Americans are really, as we use this word all the time, disproportionately affected. Tell us a little bit first about the conference, about what's going on in Atlanta, and why this is so important.
Well, I'd be happy to.
Absolutely.
So we are, as you said, the Sickle Cell Consortium, and we have an annual sickle cell patient and family convention. This is our 11th annual convention, and it's all about bringing this community together. It's not so much about awareness for the individuals in the community as much as it is as providing family and fun, entertainment, engagement, but a sense of unity amongst those living with the sickle cell community and our caregivers. Our caregivers can often experience a sense of isolation, as though they are alone, raising someone that is as sick as you are with sickle cell disease. And this is about bringing them together. And in the midst of that, if we're able to provide awareness and do a service in whatever city and state we're in that year, then that's all the better. And we seek to do that as well.
Absolutely. And we bring not just the caregivers and the warriors, we also bring the children in as well. Our children are so important in this community. And I think we are one of the only organizations that have an entire event or track just for the children, because we believe in raising them up. And they are our new next generation. They are the ones that are going to be advocating for us. So we got to train them up.
Yeah, you got to train them up. And so let's talk a little bit about sickle cell and some of the genetic factors that contribute to the higher incidence of sickle cell among African Americans. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I can. Sickle cell is a blood disease, not a Black disease. I like to tell people that. And so anyone of any race, ethnicity, or background can have sickle cell. But what happens is sickle cell disease became prominent in areas where we call the malaria belt. Because of malaria, sickle cell disease provides a certain level of protection against it. You can still catch malaria. People think you are immune to malaria if you have sickle cell disease. That's not true. But you are less likely to die from malaria if you have sickle cell or trait. And so what happens there is when malaria hit in our past and it was wiping out villages, people with sickle cell disease and trait survived long enough to have children, who survived long enough to have children, who survived long enough to have children when those around them were dying. And so we ended up that you see sickle cell most prominently in areas along the malaria belt, which happens to be along the equator, which is where we know Black folks are. Black, it's equatorial. It's not genetic. What color your skin is equatorial. It's where your ancestors were based on the equator. That happens to be where mosquitoes are giving folks malaria. And now we are all around the world, but individuals that are Black, we are more likely to have sickle cell. We have a higher rate simply because we were the ones that were surviving the longest to pass the genetics on to the next person. But we have people in the sickle cell community, white, blonde hair, blue eyes. You can be anyone and have sickle cell disease, but it is seen most often in Black Americans. Well, in this country, Black Americans.
In this country, yeah, exactly. I'm glad you cleared that up. But how is the Sickle Cell Consortium, as you said, consortium, I said consortium, and I'm wrong as usual, but that's okay. But how are you facilitating collaboration and innovation among researchers and healthcare providers?
Oh, that's a good question.
Very good.
The way that we are doing this is, first off, by training our community-based organizations the best way to engage with research. So the Sickle Cell Consortium does this patient meeting, but our primary function and focus is to bring community-based organizations and leaders and advocates in the sickle cell space together. We provide training at our leadership summit every March on how to run an effective organization, how to be a leader in this space, how to write grants, how to engage in research, what that looks like. And so by training up our communities and our organizations how to engage in research, we're able to facilitate research, because we like to say amongst us, nothing for us without us. In this community, we react better to here's what we're doing with you, as opposed to here's what we did for you. And so we teach the community as well as research scientists and physicians that you need to work with us, not for us. That's the best way to gain success in this community.
How effective? Well, let me rephrase this. Are you finding it challenging? Let's put it this way: are you finding it challenging to really have outreach, to really get the word out about sickle cell, particularly to underserved communities, particularly to Black and Brown communities?
Absolutely. Think about it. When it's not actually affecting a large portion of people that have the power or have the resources, then absolutely, it's very hard for us to get the word out, because with anything, especially a nonprofit like ours, yes, we've done some amazing things in this community, but when we're trying to get outside of the community, we got to work very, very hard. It's super challenging. We need the resource, we need the backing, we need the funds. And without that, it's super challenging. So absolutely, it's very challenging, but I will say, we have made sure to collaborate and partner with industry, collaborate and partner with allies, collaborate and partner with organizations, so that we're not just one little pod. We are an entire community and an entire tribe, and they are our arms. And so we make sure, like Dr. Bailey said, we train our organizations, and they too go out in their communities in whatever way that is. And then they are able to help with bringing the awareness. But for us, everybody's aware now. Now, what are we going to do about it?
And the media has helped us in this too.
Oh my God, yes.
Because lately there's been, sickle cell has been everywhere, from Saturday Night Live and The Chi, all the way to the newest show that's coming out called Super Cell that just came out on Netflix. And we're actually bringing the man behind that to the convention.
We are.
Nice.
So we're very excited to have Rap Man joining us to share and to let him know how proud we are that he's brought sickle cell to Netflix on such a big stage.
Absolutely.
Nice. That's awesome. So some of our viewers do have questions. David Youngblood says, can you explain the connection between sickle cell and slavery?
Oh, that's interesting. So when I have sickle cell disease, I was diagnosed as a child, and I have worked very hard, and we've been able to do a lot. But when I was little, I used to wonder, how did sickle cell survive slavery? That bothered me. The idea of a baby in crisis without being able to tell anyone, and perhaps being surrounded by a family that cared, but overseers that didn't.
Yeah.
And that bothered me. I had mental breakdowns over the idea that there was once a child in sickle crisis and there was nothing that could be done for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, how did it survive slavery? And I realized it didn't. The trait survived. Individuals with sickle cell disease did what I expect them to do. They died. And I was able to track down some records, and I was noticing, why are all these children dying? And it was suggested to me, they may have had sickle cell disease. And I thought, oh, that's exactly what is happening. Not all the time. And then when we get into the Civil War, we actually have record of a number of soldiers who were Black soldiers fighting for the Union in the Civil War who dropped dead. The first tissue bank got started because the general could not understand why so many of his Black soldiers were dying without being in battle. We have now gone back and studied those tissues. They had sickle cell trait. They were overexerting. The trait survived, and then they died in battle because of sickle cell. Now, I'm not sure if that was the question, but that is where I always went in my mind with how did it survive and what happened next.
Wow, wow. That is really interesting stuff. We appreciate that explanation. Michelle says when she became pregnant with her son, she was tested for sickle cell immediately. She was also given the option of abortion. She declined. He's 34 years old now, and her daughter's 37. She's now a physician in Maryland. It's a great success story there. But talk about that too, when an individual is giving birth or pregnant with sickle cell. Talk about some of the steps that they need to take, what they need to watch out for. Give us a picture of that.
We have newborn screening now. We didn't for a very long time. So my parents had no idea they carried sickle cell trait until I went into my first sickle crisis and was diagnosed. Now we have newborn screening, and a lot of advocates fought very hard for a very long time to ensure that sickle cell was included federally in the newborn screening. Now it is. And so you can find out at birth. But anyone over a certain age, they may not even know they carry the trait. And they may be out there having children and they have no idea. And so what it looks like after that is, depending on the state you're in, the organization, the community-based org, or whatever org is over sickle cell in that space, will be notified that there's these diagnoses. Sometimes it's done at the hospital level. Sometimes it's done at the CBO level. And a person then here in Georgia, because of this, one of our partners, the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia, you are notified, you're connected with the geneticist, you're told what that means, you're told how to help take care of your child. Unfortunately, that is not the same in every state. And there are some people that get the call, your child has sickle cell, good luck, and that's it. We are working, however, to change that. And there's a lot of people working to ensure that. And that's one of the reasons this convention exists, because we want people to find their tribe. And this year, anyone newly diagnosed, if you had a warrior, sickle cell warriors, what we call ourselves, diagnosed within the last 4 years, could be at this convention absolutely free, because we wanted them to find their tribe and to be surrounded by people who understand.
Well, that is awesome. Mike V is asking, are you working with the CDC and the NIH and HBCUs on research and development from intergovernmental and academic standpoints?
Yeah, we absolutely are. We have projects with all of the above. The CDC, we've been working on quite closely for quite a few things. Right now, what we're really doing is getting the CDC to, they're working in several states. One of the first states they started in was here in Georgia, California. It expanded to several others. And they are doing some work. The problem is we need to get the CDC funded on a federal level. We have to make sure that they are funded. And for a very long time, sickle cell disease has not been included in the list of federally recognized health disparities, despite the fact that the disparity is vast. Compare sickle cell disease to so many other illnesses. Even just the dollar amount is massive compared to the amount that goes towards research for other disease per patient and the amount that goes to sickle cell patients. And so we've had to fight very hard to get it considered federally a disparity. And we work with the CDC. We work with any entity and organization that is willing to work with us, and most of them are, in order for research, for awareness, for all of the above.
Yeah, and Southbound 3000 wants to know, have you had a chance to work with T-Boz from TLC, the singing group TLC, who she years and years ago came out and talked about her struggle with sickle cell?
My goodness, do I want to? If you out there listening, we want to work with you. Please contact us. We have reached out a few times, but it was difficult to get to her through the various levels. And I'm not important enough that I know people who know her. So if you're out there, we'd love that. We would love that. But no, that's not something we've had an opportunity to do.
And Power 96 says he says, I have the trait. The doctor told my parents my trait is recessive. I am 49 and I have not had any problems. Is this common?
For the trait, absolutely. Now, I think there's some misconceptions with what recessive means, and the gene is recessive. You have to carry it. You have to get it from both parents. If you only got it from one and you're only carrying the trait, that doesn't mean that you are asymptomatic. Now, there are physicians and research scientists in this space that would argue me down. However, individuals with the trait, I am 100% confident, can experience side effects. We know for a fact that you are more likely to have renal medullary carcinoma, a particular type of kidney cancer. So if you're out there with the trait and that lower back pain, don't ignore it, because it's completely treatable. But a lot of physicians even do not know that people with the trait have a higher incidence of renal medullary carcinoma, that is kidney cancer. Don't ignore it. Go to the doctor annually and make sure that doctor knows they should be looking at your kidneys. I also think that trait carriers, we've seen it in the media. Do you remember a few years back and all of those basketball players suddenly started dying for no reason? Most of them had sickle trait. They were being overexerted, and they can then go into a major sickle crisis, and it can cost them their lives. I believe that sickle trait can also have other effects and experiences. However, pay attention. But yes, that's common. You can live full, long life, never experience anything, but you do need to be aware of a few things.
Wow. And again, let's go back to the conference convention. Talk about the various opportunities for community members, patients, and advocates alike to get involved and collaborate.
So the patients and caregivers that's able to come in is everybody. We want everybody to come in. We are collaborating right now with the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia to actually host one of our events. We have special events each one night of the conference. Like when we say family reunion and know your tribe, we really mean it. We have special events, education, and entertainment. But when you're talking about the collaboration, we collaborate with the Foundation of Georgia. We're collaborating with SCAR Foundation. These are all community-based organizations that are coming in to work together to bring this conference together.
SCA 365.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
There's Lockhart Morgan Foundation.
Yes.
Whatever state we go to, we partner with our partners in that state. And our organization partners with CBOs around the world as it is. And we partner with advocates, research, patient and caregiver advocate leaders. That's the way in which we work together in this community. Our entire organization is founded on collaboration and partnership. In fact, it's mandated for any of our patient caregiver priorities. And that's how we define anything we do in this space. It must be prioritized by a patient and caregiver. A patient and caregiver must be at the center, leading it. And then we partner with everyone. We have so many different levels of partnership. And right now here in Georgia for our event, we've partnered with all of our Georgia partners to bring this together.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have heard about the sanctuary, the new thing that's happening in Georgia. And everybody's like, what is it? What's going on? What's happening? We actually have them coming to talk about it too. And then we have an expo during the conference where they're actually going to be talking about or giving us some sanctuary services. It's going to be super awesome for the warriors and caregivers. But when we say partnership, we really do mean it. Like some people, it just in the name or in the whatever. But for us, it is is truly a partnership to make sure that we are not just benefiting ourselves, but that the community is benefiting. If you really want to be honest, most of the time we're not benefiting, but the community it is, because it is our desire to make sure that everyone that walks through those doors feel like they are in their community, they have found their tribe, and then they are connected with everyone else around them.
And now go back to the sanctuary, because I was reading something that it's the first, it's possibly the first. Talk about that, if you will, and how important that is.
Well, mental health, first of all, is one of the most important things to help someone with a crisis. Now, you have our fluids and we have all of the pain medicines and all of the things. But in order for us to really talk about and heal the entire body, the wholeness, and I think that's one thing that has been missing in healthcare, is that they're looking at those symptoms. They're looking at the CBCs, and they're looking at all of that, but you're not looking at the whole person. And so this organization has said, okay, we are going to look at the whole person. We're going to look at what is it that we can do, what services that we can have for warriors, so that when they're not at their worst and have to be at the hospital, and if they want to just come in, because we have clinics and treatments, but this right here is kind of like a preventative. It is to really help the entire person, not just the symptoms of the disease. And so we absolutely love the sanctuary. We love it. Is the first of its kind, I believe.
I think it might be.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of anything similar.
Yeah.
Tabitha McGee, the president of Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia, has done some amazing things. We're honored to be partnered with them, have been for a couple of years now. And I think it might be the first of its kind. I'm not aware of anything else. We have done wellness sanctuary type things once a year at the convention, but that's once a year, and give out all the services and the products. We're doing it again this year, but I think this is the first of its kind. Just, it exists. You can go there and visit, and most of the services are completely free. Yep.
That's awesome. Extremely awesome. Denise Rolock Barnes, who's the publisher of the Washington Informer, says that I had the sickle cell trait as a student at Howard University. She says, I was tested there. It was only then that my father had the trait that was passed on to me. Do HBCUs still perform mandatory testing that you know of? Do you know that they still perform mandatory testing?
You know, a few years back, I recall that there was some lawsuits regarding mandatory testing, particularly when it led to the loss of academic athletic scholarships or the lack of employment opportunities, particularly amongst pilots. I don't remember off the top exactly who was behind the lawsuits or anything like that, but I don't think mandatory testing is a thing anymore because of it. And it might be partly because of that. I think that they still offer testing.
Yeah.
And a lot of them can offer it, but I do not think it's mandated. I think because of health privacy and having health privacy laws, and it's honestly just important. I'm one of the few people that think that it's a far gone conclusion for me. You Google my name and you know my whole health history because I've been very transparent about it. But someone out there has dreams of becoming a pilot, or has dreams of immigrating to a different country to learn animation. And there's moves around countries right now that are moving to limit the number of people who can come to their country with healthcare conditions. And it's growing. And I don't think that person should have to not be able to pursue their dreams because they carry sickle cell trait. And so I believe in healthcare privacy. I think that shouldn't be mandated. And if it was still a thing, I'd probably be one of the ones fighting against it.
And I do know that, like, even my nephew, he's in college now, and he called me and he was like, "Oh, Rhonda, guess what? They tested me for sickle cell trait." I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, "Sir, you know, okay, we tested." And then the other one, I was like, I'm super excited because as a partner at the Sickle Cell Consortium, it's like, oh my goodness, we're getting somewhere. We're being included in these testings. We're being included, and he's an athlete, and so they actually have to test and all of the athletes for it. So I was pretty excited about it. But I agree with you. I don't think it's mandatory at all. But for him,
athletes it is, and athletes it should be. And that's not to say that I don't think people should be tested.
Yeah.
I think you should be tested broadly, but I don't think a job should be able to mandate testing. I don't think a school should be able to mandate testing. But athletics, and things like that, where your health and your actual literal life is involved. Because if you carry the trait and you're not taking the proper precautions to hydrate, to not overexert, it has led to the loss of life. And in those scenarios, you need to know where you stand. And can we just say that if you and your partner both carry the trait, you need to know the consequences of potentially having children together, and then be able to make the decisions with that full set of knowledge. Have the baby or not, but know what's coming.
Exactly.
And so in that scenario, I really do believe that we need to all get out there and know our trait status.
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes when we want to encourage folks, you want to share some impactful, encouraging testimonies, stories. Can you share maybe one or two that from past conferences that have influenced perhaps your approach to addressing sickle cell disease?
Well, my absolute favorite is the children's track.
Yeah.
We bring in so many children to this convention. And last year we were in Houston, and I think there were about 60 or 70 children running around, which was absolutely amazing. One of the favorite things that I tell people all the time is, many years back, I walked past a table and there was a child drawing and had captioned it, "I love being part of this world where sickle cell is normal." For the next few days, this week through Sunday, everyone has sickle cell. Certainly no one does, because we are all living the same journey. We all understand. And then we can all do the Royal Ball, come to the homecoming, all of these special events that we're having, family game night, trivia, Warrior All-Stars. We are doing so many fun things, having so many conversations. King and Queen. There's so much that's happening. And everyone has sickle cell. And so suddenly no one does. And I love that our children, and then the caregivers who are children, leave there with so much knowledge that my own little nephew at 5 years old was telling me all the things that I needed to do to keep healthy. And I loved it. So that's probably my favorite there.
And one of my things is that we have something for everyone. When you come to a conference like this, sometimes you're like, oh, you don't feel very comfortable because maybe there's nothing for me. There's no conversation, no education for me. We have designed the convention so that everyone is invited. When I say everyone, I do mean everyone. The men, I know sometimes they feel like they're lost in the sauce when it comes to events like this, because truthfully now, our organization is run by powerful women, and I want to say that we have something for them. We have something for the teens. We have something for the young kids that she just talked about. We even have something for the golden warriors. And that's anybody over the age of
60. Sickle cell, you have sickle cell disease and over the age of 60, you can be here for absolutely no cost. And we have things for the Goldens as well. We started that last year. And I think it's an honor. Last year, we sent our Goldens to dinner with our caregivers of children. We sent them to brunch, not dinner, because you are raising a child with sickle cell and you're worried about what they're going to become. Now sit next to a sickle cell warrior over the age of 60 and see that you can live a long and healthy life. And so I think that's amazing. Our theme this year is Patient to Powerhouse. And there have been so many instances. And I think, honestly, we're all VIPs. If you have sickle cell disease and you are waking up each day, but the Patient to Powerhouse is where we really and genuinely believe that we are the leaders of this space. We are the ones in control of our health and our destiny. Our doctors are there to help us, but we are the greatest expert in the world of what sickle cell is doing to our bodies. And so it's about embracing that. And we have so many in this community that have done just that. We are all things that all people are. We're doctors, we're lawyers, we're nurses. We are all things all people are. And I want our community to see that, and to see that we can do and be anything.
Yeah, one question I overlooked, I didn't mean to overlook before we let you go. Actually, this question and then one more that I'll leave you with. But Southbound 3000 says, is it common with Native Americans?
You know what? So to my knowledge, I won't call it common, but sickle cell does exist in the indigenous population. The indigenous population, however, was spared. Well, let me change that. The indigenous population in America, because we have the indigenous everywhere. We have those that came first. And in some areas, those that came first. But for Native Americans, which was specifically the question, sickle cell does exist, but I am not aware of it existing in very high numbers. Now, we do have a very sizable Haitian population, Pakistani population, Indian population that all have sickle cell. And believe it or not, Pakistan is actually the fastest growing population with sickle cell disease. And so, and India, I meant India, sorry. Oh, there are people that might be angry at me for that mistake. My bad. I meant India, but we have a fair Pakistani population, but it is not, I know that it is there in the community, but I don't think it's in as high a rate of the numbers that we see trait population in like African Americans.
Yeah, the registration is open. The convention, sicklecellconvention.org. And last thing, if there's one thing, ladies, that someone says they walked away from that convention with, what do you hope that one thing would be?
For me, it's found family. And I see it happening all the time. We have children now that see each other at our convention and look forward to it. We see friendships that are formed and they stay in communication. We, not exactly ideal depending on the scenario, but we've got a lot of relationships that are formed right here at this community. And I actually am here for it. I love it. I love the found family. I love that people leave this convention with friends, family, and people that they have found. They find their tribe, and that I think is for me.
Yeah, and I would agree, because exactly what I was going to say is tribe, finding your tribe.
Finding your tribe. Is it streaming online?
Yes, it is streaming online. You must register for it, but it will be streaming. So anyone that wants to do it virtually because they can't come in person, we have not forgotten you.
No,
I mean, the pandemic, if one thing that has helped is that the fact that we can do everything virtually now. So we haven't forgotten you. It's a hybrid event. And Dr. Bailey, when I tell you, has lots of education and lots of sessions that you can come to for the convention virtually online. So register.
Listen, I was up till 4 a.m. last night making sure our virtual audience has so much opportunities and things to do. We got you.
Dr. Bailey and Sharonda, we really appreciate it. Sicklecellconvention.org. Thank you so much. This is such incredibly valuable information we need. And we're so glad that you got up this morning with Let It Be Known to tell the Black press of America and everyone else all about this Sickle Cell Warriors Convention. Thanks again. And
Thank you.
we will, I'm sure at some point, we'll have you back on to talk more about this incredibly important sickle cell disease that affects, disproportionately affects people of color. Thanks so much for joining Let It Be Known. And we will see you guys again tomorrow. Have a great one.